Bona tarda. Molt bé. Comencem ara la sessió de la tarda i m'agradaria presentar a la doctora enginyera Judith Paus, que ens acompanyarà fent una presentació sobre el seu context, que és una petita comparativa del BIM a nivell europeu, i també parlarà sobre els digital permits. So, benvinguda. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Paula, and all the project partners for inviting me here to give you my perspective on digital building permits. So my name is Judith Faut. I'm a German researcher, so maybe I can even give some German sides on this, which is not really better, I have to admit. But anyway, so my talk is about putting digital building permits in context from a research point of view. So yeah, and I want to start with some kind of agenda or key takeaways. So I prepared a little bit on the complexity. I mean, we heard about it already quite a lot, but maybe just a little bit from my side, from my perspective. Also I want to kindly, or let's say briefly, introduce a taxonomy we have developed that we can all speak the same language, because it is quite important. This is quite interdisciplinary field. I also going to show you a lot about different processes in Europe, but also beyond, and maybe also with maybe will become clear that it's maybe there's non size fits all solution. I also want to show you a few highlights from a survey we did in Germany, and also with regard to BIM, but also a general digitalization of building permitting. From a more technical point of view, I want to show you a little bit about some work on ontologies I have been involved with, and also some data ecosystem work, and but also from a perspective of digital twins, especially for roads, which is a little abstract, but I'm going to come to that. So briefly introducing myself, I didn't know what Paula has said because I didn't understand. So I'm a postdoc at the Technical University of Munich since April this year. I have a PhD in construction management, also from Germany. I studied real estate management and architecture, so I'm a little bit broader field in the construction domain. And I had previous postdoc positions at the University of Cambridge, for example, or the TUB in Austria, or Fraunhofer Italia in Italy, and quite a lot of research stay in the US and Israel, New Zealand, and so on, which I usually use for doing some field work on understanding building permit processes there. So my research focus is kind of very simple, actually, because it's actually all about planning permissions and building permitting systems. The reason why I separate planning permissions and building permitting is that in some countries it's two separate things. Most of the Commonwealth countries, for example, they strictly separated, and as I worked in England for quite a while, so this is a habit now. But the other word which is important is the systems, because I like to understand the entire system from a holistic point of view, and do some deep dives into here and there in some directions, which include these, for example, and I will touch upon some of them later on in the presentations. So what I'm keen about is the decision support systems, but also, of course, international process analysis, ontologies that I have mentioned already. But besides this more engineering or technical point of view, I also believe we need to understand also maybe the social science part of it, but of course also law and public administration sciences, policy or politics also I would include here, but also the general digitalization and servitization approach, and organizational science, among many others, I actually have to say. For the complexity or the complexity of building permitting. So I think we now understand from this morning and everything, so what's actually what we mean with building permitting, right? So I don't need to repeat that. But I also want to stress a little bit more on, let's say, the issues we have with it. So it's error prone, time consuming, manual, many stakeholders, we heard about this. But what I like in this kind of research field is very multidisciplinary, which is also, on the other hand, very exhausting. But I think we need to evolve with other disciplines here, and so on. And also, still, I mean, like as a kind of an anecdote, when I started my PhD research in 2016, I was I don't know, there were not many people in the world who were studying this kind of research field, maybe 5 people or so, more means the automated compliance checking field. I also will tell a little bit more about this in a minute. Um, and I think this, so I needed to justify myself why I'm doing this. This is, I mean, back then BIM evolved quite a lot, but only for the design phase, maybe facility management and so on. And nobody cared about the building permitting. But luckily, this changed over the years. So I think, I don't know, I would say since 5 years or so, people get more and more interested also in research. And this is, but it's still, there's much more to be done. It's a little confused. Anyway, so I mentioned this multidiscipline field, and of course, beyond civil engineering and all those construction-related disciplines, we also have informatics and public administration, law. I would even also add even more like psychology, for example, because if we want to have human in the loop, we also need to understand maybe better how decisions are actually made. So among others, but there's also many different perspectives you can actually take and which you can actually look into or focus on. So I'm gonna talk a little bit in my, let's say, still introduction on what is legislation might mean in the different countries. Of course, we're gonna explore the processes quite a lot, but also I want to say a few things about the technology. But again, there's much more we can look at this. And this is, let's say, a very simplified process diagram, which let's say shows the applicant, or which is the owner, together with the designer or the architect, with might be the applicant, but also they are like a kind of second grade, let's say, participants and stakeholders, which will deliver kind of documents and so on for the application, and they communicate with the building permit authority. But also here, we need to involve other agencies, maybe other engineers, to get some proof. So we're very, very basic. For the legislative part, I just want to show you for the example from Germany, and you can evaluate yourself if it is something comparable or not. Um, so this diagram here, so we see the public building regulations, as we call them there, and we have the building law, we have planning law, and we have actually also the bylaws, which means all the other, let's say, regulations like nature preservation and so on. We need to include other experts. And for example, in Germany, building law is on a state level, and you can see all the other different regulations which kind of belong to this. State level means Germany has 16 federal states, so we have 16 different building codes and a model building code on top. Then we have the planning law, which is actually national level. So we have a law which gives the planning code and also the, let's say, overall recommendations. But each municipality has their own statutes, which can actually be building law related, planning law related, but also the bylaw related, which can actually also be on all the levels. So just to give you an understanding on complexity in Germany, and I don't know, maybe we can discuss later if it's similar here. Um, then we can also, besides, because we also talk a lot about BIM, which I would refer is the more the substantive law. So what do we actually check, the actual content of a project, of a building? But there's also many more on the formal and administrative things we have to consider as well throughout the entire process. Um, as Jan also already mentioned a little bit on the prescriptive and performance-based regulations, like the prescriptive ones are the ones with a numeric or alphanumeric content, like a door width is more than 1 meter or something like this. So something which you can really easily check also can be done by a machine. There are the performance-based regulations, which are actually more, let's say, written in a subjective way. But anyway, real performance-based regulations are actually supposed to follow a very clear structure. But there are also others, which just some regulations neither belong to the one or the other. And so you get a feeling about this. Of course, there's also this discretion and the legal leeway and instruments and so on. Yeah, the administration needs to take or are supposed to take. Also, a few other examples from the German code. So this is the planning law, and I just highlighted here like a few things which kind of could be understood as a kind of subjective things. Like here it seems for peaceful purposes or detrimental effect. So very hard to get machine understandable, I guess. Here's an example from the building code, the model building code we have in Germany. So which says, for example, do not appear disfigures in terms of shape, scale, and so on. Or maybe must not disfigure the streets. So what does it actually mean, right? So it's kind of hard to evaluate that. All right. Then a little bit about this automated code compliance checking. So I usually call it automated code compliance checking. The common term in research is more automated code or automated compliance checking, but I like to have the code involved because I am only concerned about the code here. And this is just also kind of a reminder that, of course, all these technical developments are very valuable and important, but we also still need to be aware if something appears, we still need the human in the loop. And as Jan also mentioned already before, so the humans, I totally believe they won't be replaced. We still need them, but at the end of the day, there should be have more focus time for all the other, let's say, more discretionary decisions need to be made. So, for example, I added here this manual check, for example, when it comes to a deviation, or maybe when the clause is not objective, like apart from this prescriptive regulations, and then maybe also when the machine kind of understands, okay, maybe compliance is not met. So how we deal with it. So as a kind of a conclusion of that, and this figure is actually already quite old, at least 5 years, I think, but it's still valid, I think, in my opinion, at least. So as a summary, so we have this prescriptive building regulations and probably automated compliance checking. They are researchers on this field working on this since 50 years already, like 5 decades. And of course, they made great efforts and great solutions on understanding and to make these decisions more objective. And there's also some people claiming that the performance-based regulation can also be partly checked automatically. But SEC comes to a limit. But what does that actually mean? So how much percent actually is, we don't really know. Probably it also differs from country to country, from municipality to municipality. But this is actually what I'm most interested in. So there are some, but actually only one source, to be honest, and this is actually a standard, so maybe not that good comparable. But what I wanted to illustrate here, so that so there's as I said, we don't understand this, so we don't know the number of other regulations, and we also don't know, let's say, all the deviations, exceptions, simplifications. And these are not synonyms. For example, in the German law, they are all mean different things, how you can uh, which allow you to not comply with the code, and then it comes to more discussions and so on. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview how I understand the complexity of it. And I wanted to show you some challenges we got from a survey, which we also did in Germany, and we got quite a lot of responses here, like more than 600. Germany has almost 900 building permit authorities, of course, much more municipalities, but they are handled also partly on the city or council level or county level. So in here you can see in this word loud, kind of, what is actually the issues they are facing and or the challenges they feel. I mean, probably every one of you can pick one, so we have enough for everyone. Um, and I think I don't need to, repeat myself. You can see it yourself. So there's the high complexity. We are missing transparency, inefficient communication and collaboration, also incomplete and error-prone application documents. Maybe even we don't go for documents in the future anymore. A lot of missing information, waiting time, but also the technical parts are quite critical, and so on and so on. In this survey, and this project is called BIM4GOV. So I also put, we did ask a lot of more things, but I put here the BIM-related questions. And as you may know, in Germany, it's not really further in this BIM-based submission or checking and so on, but we wanted to give them some examples, even knowing that there might not be, they don't have any experience with it, but we wanted to give them, like, say, some examples, like here, how they would rate this information for the fire protection, which can be seen somewhere, or how would they rate the model with, if they could see some parking spaces, or the escape routes, or maybe even if we can place the model in the environment. So just to give them some, let's say, illustrative examples. And the results are not really convincing, if you can that you can see here. Um, Still, people like the green ones are, let's say, rather apply or fully apply. We ask them if they find it useful or not. But they do, but also many people are kind of not really convinced yet. And this is also something which I can refer again to Jan. So we need to also change a little bit the mindset of the people to really, let's say, get them familiar with everything and let them see the benefits that they actually have. I mentioned this one already from the state of the research, also just some evidence which is a little bit outdated, to be honest, but I would guess the curve is actually increasing. So there many years ago, there was no real research on permitting at all. This has increased a lot during the past years, and as I said, probably it's be here, I guess, somewhere. Um, but what we also figured in this review back then is that there's a lot of automating compliance checks to regulation, which is important, but maybe there's also some more things missing, like the basic research, like the actual understanding of the, let's say, foundations, but also the common understanding, because we, especially if you work internationally, for example, you mentioned the work permit quite often today. For me, that is something very abstract. I don't really know what it means, to be honest. Maybe it's just a matter of terminology. Maybe it's something completely different. So we need to be aware and make sure that we speak the same language. Um, this is also the reason, like, speaking the same language is why a couple of authors, a group of authors, we have kind of developed this taxonomy. It's a very simplified schema here, to identify the main concepts of digital building permitting and also aspects, so that kind of a reference for all of our researchers and beyond, of course, also for practitioners, that they can make sure we speak the same language, we understand each other. So just very briefly, so we subdivided into 4 subsystems, like a legislative system, for example, the government level, but also all the rules and regulations, which we which we shouldn't forget, but what we know least of is the organizational system, like all the political, social, or maybe also business management aspects behind this. We have the technological system with software and hardware, but also the data and information we need, and also the procedural systems. And that might be a little confusing, what I mean with procedure versus process. For the procedure, I mean, for example, if we have simplified procedures for smaller buildings, do we separate complex building with less complex buildings, for example? Are there different application streams, for example, versus the actual process steps? this is another illustration of this taxonomy. So this is also all published, for example, if you want to have a look. So we try to connect all of them. Of course, all these subsystems are connected among each other, and we also put some aspects in there and examples and so on. Then what I also wanted to tell you how I started with building permitting, because also it started with BIM, like a little anecdote again. Um, this when I started my PhD in 2016 again, this was so my PhD supervisor said, so you can do any research about anything, at least it needs to have something to do with BIM. And then I started to think, because I always had a kind of a a favor for regulations and so on, looking into permitting, and and then I also started to researching a literature review and so on BIM. And this time it was really rare. And I went to municipalities in Germany, first of all, and asked them about what they think. And of course, they didn't know what BIM actually means. And also by talking to them, I understood, okay, even if I would give them BIM models now, I think that it wouldn't be of any help for them. So that they are not there yet. They are maybe not mature enough. And I, let's say, dedicated my PhD work into more, let's say, theoretical foundations, because I also noticed that everything about building permitting is decision making. There's a bundle of decisions we need to look at and need to be combined, and need to have a holistic point of view of it. So I developed this theoretical model on this permittability for building projects. I won't go into detail here, but I also want to just stress that there's also more than the process part. For example, it's also the actor system, like what is actually in our environment, which a decision maker can need to take into account, but cannot change themselves. But also the target system, which is very important for all the regulations we need to comply with. So what was the actual target? Why this regulation was written? And over the past decades, in many countries, at least the one I know of, this got kind of lost. So nobody knows really. Sometimes there are different government levels involved in writing these regulations. And then the operator, like the building official, needs to deal with it without really knowing what's the actual purpose. And this is something I wanted to mention. And now we are moving a little bit into more this process topic. So I also did this like theoretical schemas, and this can be done in a very, very detail with a BPMN. There are standardization, how you can model processes and things. But what I think what's probably also interesting for getting more international understanding. So I, probably I started to understand, or I wanted to understand processes. And I also went to the US, for example, and more wanted to see, okay, what's actually different. And it helped me quite a lot, because coming from one country, you just expect that every other country works the same way, but it's not. I mean, there are probably similarities, but if you really want to understand, I think it really helps if you look beyond this. And this also helped me to develop kind of a framework to understand what is actually needed to be considered when you think or model building permit processes. And I think it's processes, stakeholders, that's all clear. But there are many, many tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge involved, maybe even municipal based, which we need to take into account most of the time, at least. So starting with some process maps, and there are going to be more. So I'm going to try to highlight a few things from each country, or let's see, give you some understanding how they um, differentiate. So this is Germany, very brief. So in Germany, which is it's very bundled, let's say. So usually, even in some municipalities, so they get or the building permit authorities, so they get the application, and then one person takes over and does the entire review. So there's no separation of the different tasks. This is also depends on the municipality size and how they structure themselves and so on. But basically, they do a kind of a pre-check, this a formal check, and then they do what I call the content check, so the planning law, the building regulations, and so on. And they also participate other agencies like water preservation, hygiene, whatever kind. I think there are up to 50 stakeholders which can be involved in the German law at least. Um, so yeah, this is, let's say, very a bundled process. I would say they are very kind of combined. In the US, for example, they separate much more. At least this municipality I have studied. For example, there's also states in the US they don't have any planning law. For example, they just do what I want, kind of. But here, I just want to emphasize. So this is already kind of a differentiation. So they do their own separate processes, and also usually the applicant needs to participate all the other agencies beforehand. So they are not allowed to submit the actual building permit application before they haven't got all the other approvals from the other agencies. Um, yeah, this is just like a sub process which I find interesting, which is the hearing. So in the planning law for the planning part in the planning department. So if there's any variance which needs to be clarified, they have a public hearing, which the entire public, like really everyone can come and say something what their opinion is. There won't be any discussion because this hearing officer only take notes and will bring them back to their decision maker, which is a high-level management person in the planning department, and they will make a decision. So, for example, I just wanted to bring this because it might be also interesting to understand if BIM can also help here to some extent. Um, as I mentioned before, I also did some studies in Israel like a few years ago, and this um, process is kind of complex, but I think it has a few interesting points that I wanted to highlight. For example, in Israel, before you can do the actual submission, before you can submit your building application, you have to apply for an information file, which means you just have a rough design of your project, and then you ask the municipality, say, this is what I want to do. Please provide me the information file, and they will, let's say, also collect with other agencies and so on, which regulations are actually needed or need to be considered at this specific plot of land, for example. Um, and then they can enrich their design, and then finally they can submit the application. I think it sounds like a very good concept, but unfortunately it doesn't work in practice. But for other reasons, because all the different regulations from the other agencies collide. So at the end of the day, they are also just confused and so on. But maybe we can learn from this basically a nice example and maybe try to make something better of it. Um, Another interesting approach, what they do in Israel, otherwise it's kind of similar. They do have a building control agency, which is a separate agency they have established, I think, 10 years ago. There are, I think, 8 building control offices in Israel, and they need to take over, I think, for the complex building, especially residential buildings, to get an independent review. From them, they also need to go through a very high-level qualification process and so on. And they will, for example, do all the building regulation checks, but they will also supervise the actual on-site inspections and things like that. Just to highlight some points. Then we did quite an effort. I think it took probably 3 years in total to get this one published. This is a paper on comparative study on building permit processes in European countries. But for this paper, which is a kind of database, and I will show you this in a minute, it's about 70 countries. And you can see a long list of authors here. Um, and we presented something like this, which we, let's say, agreed on like a subset of processes and sub-processes, and we compared all the different countries, which you can also see better here, by the way. That is just zoom in of this picture. And then we just compared, okay, which process is actually the same in which countries. I mean, it doesn't really say if it's the same, but does it actually exist? And as you can nicely see here, so there are a few things which is like probably very obvious. But for example, this pre-consultation phase, which is, I don't know, something, yeah, not really happening in some countries. In some countries, optional. In some countries, they pay a lot of attention to it for several reasons. Again. Um, then, for example, another one, which is also the participation of the other agencies, which is usually quite different, but also the participation of the public. I don't know what's the process here, to be honest, but there are so many different ways to do that, or maybe sometimes are actually not required, so nobody cares. In other countries, the applicant, for example, they need to um, request the confirmation of the neighbors, or just need to prove that the neighbor has seen the planning documents, for example. They need to sign it or whatever. And then they are able to submit the building application, for example. In other countries, the municipality will contact the neighbors, the affected neighbors, and then we can now discuss what affected neighbors means. Um, yeah, if they agree, or maybe sometimes they just involve them if they cannot comply with the code and the municipality needed to do some discretionary actions. So I could continue for a while, but I will stop now. But I just wanted to emphasize this because this is not the only one what matters. It's also about the order of the processes. Because they also differ. So it's not just there's also always the application and then this and this and this. Um, it's that also differs quite a lot. For example, taking Slovenia as an example, kind of similar as I showed from the US. So they need to involve the public and all the other authorities even beforehand. And this is, of course, very, yeah, I would say very struggling for them, because how should they know? I mean, you really need to be a very experienced architect or designer to really understand. As I said, there might be up to 50 agencies that need to be involved. This is a kind of an excerpt of the stakeholders that could be involved from our study. I think it's far away from comprehensive, but yeah, it just give you a glimpse of how this entire stakeholder topic can become. Um, this study, and as I mentioned, so you can check all check you can check all my publications out online, so they are actually all publicly available. So what we did, we then were able to include two more countries. I think it was Lithuania and the Netherlands on top, so that we did a quite long report, which is about 100 pages, where we tried to explain in a kind of a brief way the building permit system based on this taxonomy, how the system works, to get a first idea, to get to know what regulations are necessary for each country, what technical level they are at this point. And we also included all those kind of comprehensive process maps for each of this country if you want to learn more about this. Um, and then, okay, we have now all the processes. That's super nice. But also together with some colleagues, we try to understand what can we actually do with it. Can we kind of quantify them, or kind of compare them in a quantifiable way? And we developed this kind of method where we actually took some points, measurable points from this BPMN diagrams I showed before, created some indicators, and give them some scores within the matrix, and compare them on a quantifiable way. I don't want to go into very detail, but I think if we are talking about we want to increase transparency, and we want to accelerate the process and so on, probably it's also important that we can kind of measure what we actually doing. Um, so we, for example, did some parameters, of course, on time consumption, transparency, but also decision robustness, which is in some countries there it's out of the question, but it's much more important in countries where, for example, the mayor can let's say, reject a project just on his opinion or her opinion, which wouldn't happen in other countries, for example. But also the corruption vulnerability here, it's also important, or even the citizen friendliness. Sorry for the bad quality. And yeah, and then we measure them based on what we could extract from the BPMN diagrams. Again, for example, this participation, who and when they are involved. Is it a group decision, which would probably lead to less, there would be less vulnerable for corruption, for example? Do they involve other people, and so on? Very quickly about this ontology work. So this is a ontology which we initially use for knowledge management, but also to connect and, let's say, describe in a kind of a standardized way what are we actually doing or talking about. So this OPPA stands for Ontology for Building Permit Authorities. So this is actually more about on the, let's say, how are these administrative processes, so not the actual content check, but all the administrative processes could work, like the participation of other stakeholders, but also the assignment. So which stakeholder, no, which building official is actually the most suitable one for a specific building project. This is just some examples. I won't go into detail here. But on top of that, and I think a few of you will agree with me, so we actually do have enough ontologies. We don't need to develop any further, but they are still quite valuable. So it might be more future work that we try to connect them and try to bring some value to them and to create some maybe ontology network so that they can really work together, which is their original use. And we developed this Onto PPR, like an ontology-based workflow and concept for building permit reviews, where we reuse this OPPA for those administrative processes, but also used in another ontology from some colleagues from the University of Bochum in Germany. They deal with this yeah, the content check. We also developed this further, so at the end of the day, we also were able to cover these. Just to give you some ideas on that. So this is the latest one, which you can also find online if you're interested in it. It's quite long, I have to admit. So then we created this whole thing that we can actually leverage, also using information containers and so on, having information gets here, and then we reuse the information over the process. This one belongs to that, and is a schematic multi-layer structure for the building permit review process. And I guess I have to explain a little bit. So as we talk about, for example, for the planning and building law, so we kind of have to separate it. And here you can see those different process steps. And we tried this figure, or we actually created this figure to understand to what degree, to which level do I need what information to actually decide on a specific process steps. I mean, there are many things to fill. I mean, we did a case study and so on. Probably this needs to be adjusted municipality by municipality or country by country. But I think this is a nice example. So to go from high level into more detailed, and maybe only in this stage, then we need to understand, okay, this is maybe municipal based, all the rest is maybe on a country level or like a state level or whatever kind in this specific country. Okay, then now to another project. This is what the one I did at the University of Cambridge, which was about on connecting planning and building permits through road digital twins. So I belong to a group which are working on road digital twins, and I don't mean planning and building permits for roads. I'm still remain faithfully to buildings, but the idea was that we can actually reuse the information. So imagine we have a road, and maybe we have a road digital twin for this with a lot of information, and we have buildings for our cities where we need permits for. And this information could actually be reused, and understand to what extent can we use this information. So to linking both domains reuse the information and also leverage the connection between both. So kind of a cross-sectoral um, analysis. And I did has a few work packages, but this one is, I think, the most interesting one. No. Um, so, for example, to understand, first of all, kind of an exploratory research on the information packages they're actually connected. So, and those can, for example, be like the assurance of site development, but also accessibility of the plot, for example, where both are connected. Usage rights, for example, if you need to pass a plot to some extent, or even justification or participation of transport agencies or whatever. Again, it's very different between the countries. Um, and so after like my initial research, so what we discussed most, I just wanted to highlight this here. So I separated into this four uh, topics. One is construction based, because usually when you get a building permit, you at some point you also want to build a building, right? And very often you need to close a road, you need to do this and this, so you need other permits for this building permit afterwards. And as far as I understood, at least from the ones I have talked with, the permits are not really well connected. And I think that could also be something we can think about if we can integrate it much better into the entire workflow. Um, but of course, there's also some transport modeling or planning related things, so that we involve maybe in a more smarter way traffic peaks models and so on. But also the regulations, so how we can deal with parking and charging stations and so on. But also the design based, right? So if they are, let's say, how roads or vice versa influence building design. Yeah, also maybe in future for autonomous cars, for example, if we don't need any visibility anymore, really. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I think this is too long. And we also did it ontology connection with this part, because as I mentioned, my colleagues in Cambridge, they are working on this ontology for road part. But I'm running out of time. I'm sorry for this. So I just want to click you through a few other research projects I've worked with or I'm still working with. This one is a Gaia X-based building permit software architecture, kind of. So this project also ended last year. But it's probably also something to consider for future, as we are, I think, people are talking more and more about data and servitization ecosystem, um, and how we can deal with this, how we make this trustworthy, and so on. Um, Also, another thing I wanted to mention are these on-site inspections, which are also, at least in our domain, I would say, a little bit under-researched yet. I also know that some countries, the municipality is not responsible for them, and some, yes, some are unsure. So maybe also worth considering this for the entire workflow. Also, you may have heard about the digital building logbook, also a European concept or initiative they want to stress quite, I would say generously. And we also did some research on understanding how these concepts, like the building permit and the logbook, are actually connected throughout the entire building life cycle. Um, we also did some research on the sustainability development goals and how digital building permitting might affect them, both beneficial but also maybe disadvantaging. I think it was also very surprising that it's actually more sustainability goals involved than just, let's say, the usual ones like affordable in clean energy, and of course the 11, which is the cities. I think there's actually much more we can take into account here, and I think it's very important to do so. Um, just very quickly to wrap up. So I do have a lot of other research going on. So please feel free to reach out or check my I don't know, ResearchGate or Google Scholar or whatever profile. I'm happy to connect and to talk with you about all these things. Just a kind reminder that we have this it's a building permit conference in Vienna. I'm also kind of involved in the organization committee. So if you want to learn more for research on building permitting or practice, or even want to join a workshop, so you are very welcome to join us there. And yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for your attention, for the invitation again, and that's it from my side. Do we have? Okay, yeah, sure. Happy to do so. Any questions? I know it was a lot, so sorry for that. No?
Hello.
Hello.
Congratulations for your great research and reason, as I understand. I wanted to ask you, what about the content of the delivery projects? I mean, have you studied which is the minimum content to common a transversal study of of the delivery files in every country? Are they only mm, delivering, for example, plans and models and some documents, or only models, or do you have this issue in the papers?
Yeah, I didn't do like a very in-depth study on that. As far as I know, there are just a few countries. I think they're the ones Jan mentioned in his presentation, which are, let's say, pioneering with BIM models. Otherwise, it's still, I would say, mostly PDF based. Sometimes like still paperwork. But there was a study from Building Smart actually, and they compared different application forms from a few countries, I think not that many, and they looked, for example, on what requirements they actually asked for.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
for example, I mean,
Mhm.
if they were delivering plans not only in PDF but also in CAD files or in GIS files, or because as far as I know, this would have been, let's say, an intermediate stage between PDF and BIM models. No, if you can check things on the CAD files and whatever, and I don't know if everybody is asking for this, or everybody just stayed in the PDF, and now we jump directly to the BIM models.
Yeah, good question. I don't know many countries that actually request cut files. I do know that India is doing this. Probably also a few others, but I'm not really sure. But usually, I think municipalities are much more advanced in using GIS, usually apart from the rest, let's say, either the CAD model or the PDFs. But yeah, so this is what I know of.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Please.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. But I saw in one of your slides you mentioned the Gaia X
Mhm.
data space. Can you develop a bit more, like what does it means, like this Gaia X related to the building date permit?
I mean, was just a research project. I mean, probably heard about Gaia X, this, let's say, European initiative or project that the European Commission wants to kind of establish a European data space or service data space. And this project I mentioned, this IECO one, this was funded by the German government. They wanted to understand what like a data ecosystem, especially Gaia X, could bring benefit for the construction industry. And one use case of it was the building permit use case. And we tried to understand if we would have this Gaia X platform, how would we actually deal with a building permitting, if that it would be, yeah, in how could it work in future, let's say. But it's not like implemented at all. It was just on a research based level. And they also did other construction related use cases, for example. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Now?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, very nice presentation, Judith.
Thanks.
After your research and being here in Barcelona, and knowing about different case studies in Geneva, in Abu Dhabi, New York, etc., which is the city or the example or the case study that you could recommend us? So knowing that we are here in Europe, Mediterranean culture, Latin governments, uh, which one do you think that we would have to follow more?
Uh, I think it's a tough question, but I guess you have already Christopher involved, which is a good start. But I think there are also other, I mean, Jan in his slide where he put on the world map all the, let's say, pioneering front runners like Singapore. I mean, we need, and also Dubai. I think this is worth observing. We also probably need to understand to what extent is it actually adaptable for our cases. I don't know. It's hard to say. I would say there is no best practice case. I mean, there are pioneering countries and they do very, very valuable work, but we also need to understand to what extent is actually adaptable from so many different viewpoints. It's the regulations, it's also how the government work, the administrative part, the people involved, and so on. So I think it's worth observing all of them, but also be skeptical and critical to what extent you can adapt it for your case. That would be my recommendation. Sorry. So otherwise, I also will be here until the end of the day. If you want to reach out, I would be happy to talk to you. And thanks again for the invitation.
Ignacy, I just wanted to add, Ignacy, you're a very good question, but I would say that do it your way. And because even looking at the way Madrid is approaching it, maybe no. You just have to start. You have to start your own way and learn from the others. Look what they're doing, just like Judith said. But there's no copy paste. I can tell you that right away. And but I think you have all the pieces in place here to start doing it right now.
Okay, so vielen Dank, Judith. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I think everyone loved how illustrative it was to spread some context about the different scopes in the digital permit world. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce our next little slot to end the day. So as a little bit of introduction, oftentimes I think urban legend says that public administration is this like prehistoric rock that absorb your taxes. But although some part might be true, the truth is that, as everyone has pointed out today, is that public administration is this ever-evolving body that is willing to adapt and to adhere new and different technologies into their scope to transform this relationship with businesses and administration. One of the ways that we're pursuing and we're striving to make a difference is adopting new international projects, um, like and adopting new technologies like the building information models into the roots of our systems, which, mind you, it's not an easy task. Today, we officially kickstart the project BIM4GOV, but actually the project was born a long time ago. One day, Christina spends a lot of time in the office, but she certainly spends more time in her head plotting for new strategies. So one day she walked into the office and she just asked this very general question: does anyone know anything about BIM? And we all looked at each other, and two things. No one knew anything about BIM, and if they would have, that was a trick question. But fearless Natalia, our engineer by accident, so called, said, "Of course, yes, I do." And Christina replied, "I don't know what it is about yet exactly, but we're going to use it." And the mission was on, and with a very short span, we found some very interesting and eager public bodies that were willing to hop onto this mission with us. And so the project was officially born. I think the take on this small introduction is sometimes the best ideas come from asking the right questions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my colleagues so I can ask you some questions about the project, challenges, and expectations for this next 4 years of cooperation. So please welcome to the stage Natalia Cantero, Christopher Robin Reitbier, Agnieszka Nesta, Dr. Peter Balanzi, Pablo Mich, I'm trying, and Dr. John Spillane. Please welcome so we can have a lovely chat about the project. Just a little, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to give one split second to everyone to introduce themselves and their organization, please. If Pablo, you want to start and we can do this little round, just one hot second and then we can start with the questions.
Thank you. Hello to everyone. My name is Pavle Miovčić. I come from Enterprise Development Agency EDA from Banja Luka in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are an NGO and we are in this project with Institute for Standardization of Bosnia and Herzegovina. We're mainly focused on SMEs, but also on public documents. We work with ministries related to SMEs mostly. So this is a relatively new area for us, but we did also had a crash course in BIM. So I hope that we will be managed to help introduce BIM in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Reitbier. I'm the head of digital construction for the city of Tallinn in Estonia, and I'm gonna save everybody some time because what we are doing, I had the opportunity for Jan to be here and give 1 hour speech about that. So all this kind of like BIM implementation and building permits, and also starting to doing that in urban planning.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Peter Balanzi. I'm working as the head of the Vas County Government Office, which is a regional public authority in Hungary and has a general responsibility on development of the county, and not only the county, but the settlements of the county. We are involved some of Interreg and other international projects. For us, the topic of this BIM4GOV project is so important because of the perspective and the goals that which we can achieve with this partnership. Thank you very much.
Of course, I think they have a microphone over here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Agnieszka Nędza, and in this project, I represent Rzeszów Regional Development Agency from Poland. Our agency is focused on the many areas of regional development, but with a big focus on the entrepreneurship and startups. And our expectation of these projects are that the BIM would be more used in Poland because we are on a very beginning of this methodology, technology, and as far as this subject was somehow begin to be used, but somehow it stopped. And to be honest, we want this preparation to be continued, and we hope that we can change something.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Spillane from the University of Limerick in Ireland. We're an academic research intensive university covering numerous areas, all within the built environment, one of which is the digitalization of what we do. So I'm an advisory partner on this project, working with our colleagues over the next 4 years, and we look forward to collaborating and see what we can do to solve what is a very inherent and difficult aspect. But as many of the presenters have shown already today, it's something that we feel we can overcome as a collective.
I, bueno, jo sóc la Natàlia Cantero. Nosaltres som els vostres amics. Si encara no ens havíeu descobert, doncs sí som aquí. Esperem i volem, diguem-ne, acompanyar-vos en la transformació dels vostres procediments. Si pot ser en BIM, perfecte. Si no, doncs en tot allò que sigui el model de transformació. I res, que pels que ja ens coneixem, doncs encantada de tornar-vos a veure, i els que no, doncs esperem poder veure-us en breu.
Great. Thank you very much to everyone. I think we're going to kickstart the round of questions by asking you, Chris, a question, if that's all right. So Jansar talked about countries like Estonia being widely advanced and leaders in this digital administration world. I'd like to ask you, please, if you can share some main lessons for the city of Tallinn and how do you think they can impact the project and its participating regions?
Do you mean like main lessons what to do or main lessons what to avoid, or both of them?
Maybe you can start with something positive and maybe then you can finish with the negative aspects.
They're both actually very positive, because if you have somebody who has failed already before, then you have the opportunity not to fail in exactly the same point. But I would say like mostly what really helped us, of course, in Estonia as the country overall is this kind of like digital identity. If you have already the digital signature, you have the digital ID, then it is a good ground for the digital services. If you still have to sign things on paper, even like print it out, sign it, scan it in, sorry, it ain't gonna work. BIM is not the answer to your problems. First of all, you have to have the foundation, then you can start building a building. What is about implementing BIM in some kind of processes? You can have this kind of like approach that you solve everything in theory and then you start putting it into the practice. If you do it like this, and then you discover the first day starting with practice that half of your theory was wrong and the other half has been expired. So you have to restart with your theory again. So just split the pieces, have this kind of like startup mentality. It doesn't matter that are you in the public sector or private sector, you can still have this kind of like creative mentality. First of all, try to do this kind of like small scale pilot to get understanding what it is about, then do the proof of concept, prove that this kind of solution can work. Like we did, we got this kind of like stakeholder feedback to that. Then define minimum viable product. Just put something out there that the end users can use, they can feedback, they can get accustomed to. You can already start the training process, things like this. You can add this kind of like extra features in the future. You don't have to have everything ready. Do something, and like Jan had in this last slide, just do it, and do it now. It's no point of discussing these things, just start doing it. That would be the advice. And of course have this kind of like mentality that not everything works out, and of course there will be mistakes. Just be prepared to address these mistakes and not make a big fuss about it.
Thank you so much. I think you addressed too many important points, and one of them are the challenges and the things that have been done wrong, to learn from it and to grow in this sense. I think maybe also you can explain from your context. I think we know that it's on a different end of the scope. But what do you think are the main obstacles for your region, which is Hungary, to adopt this BIM technology?
Yeah. In Hungary, this BIM method is not mandatory. So from the state level, we probably have only the goal to expand this method. Although we have some pilots from the level of the municipalities, and particularly we have some special areas from the state that we can use as the first step to start this way, probably to join the states like Estonia, or probably like Spain, Catalonia. So if I can say, for us, the most important is that we can jump the steps and use this project and partnership to reach a higher level than we are standing actually.
I think you can get this microphone in this area. Well, thank you so much. I feel like you've expressed that Hungary is also very eager, and one of the steps was to get into this project and get a lot of stakeholders involved in this to build the excitement. I think you also commented on that how Poland is actually also very excited to embark on this journey. I'm going to ask you to comment on that, but I also want to ask you. What do you feel like in Poland's scope they can do to overcome maybe some legal, organizational, or even territorial challenges?
That's a pretty good question, and it's quite difficult to answer this question because in Poland we are on a very beginning of using this technology, and we've got to be honest, we've got to know any regulatory laws about using it. I think if you even ask someone what BIM is, I suppose they wouldn't even know that. Actually, there was created some group which task was to create some laws, but this regulation are still on a draft level. So we expect that thanks to these projects, we will make it, we will raise the citizens' awareness about that, and that maybe somehow finally we'll be able to make their life easier.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think one of the things that has been said during this session is that there are two key elements for BIM implementation into e-governance, and that is efficiency and resources. I'd like to ask you, Pablo, in your context in Bosnia, what are the skills or resources that you feel like Bosnia from the public sector can implement, obviously in the public administration or any other public bodies, to make um, the scope more digitalized?
Mm, Well, situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina regarding BIM is that we are at a very early stage. So, just as Judith mentioned in her example, if you would go to somewhere in any institution, probably people would ask you what is BIM. Even the one regarding building and construction sector, probably there will be maybe 50% of those who don't know. Even in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the issue is that only 15% of engineers know how to use BIM. So we are facing many challenges coming from there is no BIM present almost at all. At universities, there is only one example when you can hear anything about BIM. This is in Sarajevo. The thing in Bosnia and Herzegovina that uh, a pressure to innovate and to introduce BIM is coming from two sides. It is, as usual, coming from the European Union. For example, there is one good practice in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that is a motorway, European motorway 5C that goes from Hungary to Croatia on the south. And it is designed and it is being constructed by using BIM. But this is the case because it was funded by the European funds.
Hmm.
And basically, so there's also another place where the pressure to introduce BIM is coming from, and it is from private sector. So there are some enterprises, private enterprises, firms, SMEs mostly, in Bosnia and Herzegovina that work with their partners from Austria, from Germany, and that also work in the region. And there are some construction projects, for example, some towers in Sarajevo, or some public buildings that they simply use BIM because they see that this is a good thing. It makes things easier, and we will try to promote these things.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying because we can very much tie it back to the other roundtable where they were stressing about the necessity to bring courses, education, and professional formation to civil servants and other professionals from the BIM scope in the public administration. So I just feel like that's very interesting. You underline it because it feels like there's this common necessity. I feel like in all of our contexts, more or less. So yeah, thank you so much for putting your point of view. But I feel like there are so many ideas that have been just said, and I feel like maybe that's just my opinion. Catalonia is a very good bridge in between all the scopes that are here tonight. One of the ideas that was shared in the other roundtable as well was that procedures are becoming more demanding, which just underlines the necessity or the reality behind the very extensive amount of work that has to be done and has to be put into procedures. I'd like you to please share a little bit about the situation right now in at least at the Office of Business Administration and how we can tackle this with the project itself.
Yes. Yes, Christina, during the last roundtable, she was commenting, she was talking about our pilot. Now we are exploring this pilot with this environment scope because we think, yes, is the first because it's a complex procedure because in the same way that Judith said or demonstrated in the slide, we have a lot of participations, different participants during the procedure. We have a lot of documentations, etc. That all of that is not possible to agilize the administration, and it's not possible to agilize this kind of permits. For us, it's interesting to explore in this environment scope too, because yes, normally we talk about BIM, about building permits, but we think that this kind of methodology we can explore and we can extend to the other kinds of permits. It's not necessary to only exclusive BIM run by building, but it's not necessary. We can explore and we think building BIM can help us in other scopes because this because the administrations needs to do permits in all of scopes, and all of these permits are connected because sometimes yes, is we don't are putting now the focus on the building, but previously to arrive to the building, you have a prescription sometimes in environment, and you and this condition put the conditions after in your building, and it's for that that we say what is not possible to explore this environment scope because sometimes you have a prescriptions and is then a previous scenario that you arrive to the building to build the your proposal edification. And what's that that we said, okay, we think that we can connect this BIM because we think in this cycle, in this life cycle of this building. Judith explored that or exposed that. But yes, it's not only sometimes you have environment prescriptions. After that, you have environment buildings prescriptions. But you after that arrive that you have this building it exists, and you need to do the inspection, and you continue the management of this on this build. And it's for that that we think this pilot is interesting in that, and is interesting too, thanks to this Interreg program too, and this cooperation.
Thank you. I think we've seen the perspectives from all the partners now. We come from different contexts, but I feel like yesterday during our first partner meeting, we identified some things in common. And even though, our context, as I said, might be different, I want to ask you, Dr. John Spillane, as our advisory partner, from the research and academia perspective, I'd like to ask you, how can the University of Limerick bring support to ourselves, to the partners, and how can we define this common methodology that works across the very different regions?
Thank you, Paula. Very good question. The one thing that we have seen from our research with our industry partners is the one issue that we see time and time again is procrastination is the evil of progress to society. And we are continually, and Jan made an excellent point on it as well, that And I would take it an extra step that you fail fast, you fail quick, but you fail cheap. Let's start and start today. And that's what we do as a research institution with our academic and our industry partners, is that we don't procrastinate. And that's what I want to bring to the project, as Jan and Chris has alluded to as well. We have to start today. It's a 4-year project, and as we all can agree, 4 years will fly. So we need to move quick on this. And as many of the partners have all said here today, this is a complex problem. But as many of the earlier presenters have shown, technically we can do this. So I'm not concerned that we cannot do this. We need to do this, and we need to do it as quick as we can. And that's where my university and our team can help bring the applied research practices and the methodologies that we've applied in industry to this project. And time again, we have shown that yes, we can do this, but you need to do it today. And that is the key message that I and us as a university will bring in the partnership.
Thanks a million. I feel like that was a very good reflection altogether, and I feel like that's something we can integrate as a motto behind this project. It is to kickstart this with this energy. I feel like there has been a lot that has been said, tons of information, very interesting presentations. I'd like to do like a little bit of an open question on what is the main take that you think that you're taking out of today. What are the main lessons or challenges you've identified that you can put back in your organizations the moment you land, either today or tomorrow? I'd like for you maybe to start.
Actually, again, like hearing the different things today is like, okay, that Judith pointed out that, of course, the different countries have the different procedures, but when we're also looking at this table, that most of the rows were green, like more than 80% was the same. Even if it is slightly different, it is still the same. It's like how we want to believe we are so unique. No, we are not. We have 2 eyes, 10 fingers mostly. If you're not working in the sawmill, maybe you have cut out 2, but still quite the same. And again, listening here today also at round table, it's like I'm at the other side of the Europe and I'm just listening. There are the same problems, about the same solutions, how to tackle these problems. So we just have to put our heads together and not waste this kind of potential of the collaboration and stop working in silos and stop trying to reinvent the wheel in the different chambers, because the wheel is there already. It's just waiting for us to find the time, this resource that is mostly missing, and to take that round wheel instead of the square wheels and make our lives a little bit easier. But what's mostly is the problem, and what has been the problem in Estonia as well, is like, well, I would really like to do that innovation stuff, but I'm so busy at the moment. It's like I'm so overwhelmed with work, I can't find the time. Yeah, but that's understandable. But then it has to be the top-down approach. The leaders must find time for their workers to do the innovation part as well. It cannot be like you're working 100% of the time and extra 30% of the time unpaid, you're doing the innovation part. So it has to be in scale, and this is the change management that's mostly lacking.
Mm. Yeah, I think when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was Pura Cristina in your life, someone that has this innovation outlook and that can inspire a team to work together to build something. So I was gonna say unique, but truly just visionary altogether. I'd like to maybe give the floor to Pablo to do this open reflection.
Thank you. I have a lot of reflection. I have
That's
a
great.
lot of notes here, but I think that maybe the first impression after yesterday was that before I was a bit afraid. I was afraid that we are the only country that is still, in the early stage. But then when we heard that, I mean, the others are a bit better, but we share a lot of challenges, the same challenges with Poland, with Hungary, and somehow it will be easier for us. Now we have somebody to share our problems and to hear how are they facing their challenges. And also we heard we know who to ask what. For example, Jan today mentioned that his company he's working in, Future Insight, has a part of the company working in Serbia, and Serbia is neighbor to Bosnia, and they probably know a bit more details about processes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. These were for sure very helpful, and there are plenty more in my notes, but I know that we need to finish soon.
If you want to share one more, you do have time. If not, maybe we can give the floor to.
Well, in my notes, I think this is a nice approach. It was from Ireland, and how they're introducing changes in phase. So, in 2024, they will need to apply BIM in projects that worth more than 100 million. In 2025, for projects that worth more than 20 million, and so on. And that by 2027, all public projects should be done in BIM. And it's a bit easier when you're introducing changes, when you're doing it in phases, than when you say we need to do it next year, and this for sure won't happen in a year, because we need to prepare many things. For example, knowledge. We need to have engineers who know to work in BIM. We need to have universities that lecture about BIM. We need to have also maybe even high schools. We need to have laws and bylaws prepared for such things, so that you can create public procurements, and you can request BIM methodology being used, and so on.
I think it's a great reflection. It's a great point to keep other countries or in other regions aside from this partnership in mind as a sort of like inspiration to build this BIM track in our regions. I'd like to maybe give the floor to this section right here, Agnieszka, if you want to do this open reflection, talk about maybe the challenges, the things that have inspired you.
Actually, there were a lot of inspirations here, especially from John. So I think we will use their examples as some kind of our tour guide. Actually, there is a really long way ahead of us when we talk about the Poland, because as we have also discussed with my colleague, actually we can't be focused only on our region, because we are in the whole country. We are on a very beginning, so engaging only our regional stakeholders is not enough, because we should find some central solutions and push it forward to be used more. And of course, we are happy that we will be able to work on a digitalization with our Estonian partner, because we can learn from them a lot.
Thanks a million. John, if you want to.
Yes, thank you. Just from the Irish perspective and our mandate, where we pushed it out on a phased basis, we didn't invent that. We looked at partners internationally who were more successful on their rollouts. We looked at positives, negatives, and the evidence, not just in relation to BIM or digital policies, etc., but it's proven that it's phased integration works best. So we're trying to look at everybody else, and as Chris put a point on it, that if we don't have to get it all right straight away, but let's start on the right foot and start making those early progression as quick as we can, and start introducing what we are proposing to our stakeholders externally. And from there, the vision for me then is that the external stakeholders will then drive this, that they will want to do this. And once we can encourage and foster that mindset, I think half the work is already done for us. As we've seen earlier, the technology is there, the processes, the permits, everything is there. We just need to bring it together as a unit and to have belief, and then distill that belief to our external stakeholders and show that you can do this and the benefits of doing it. So for me, yes, every economy all over the world is at a different stage. Some are in their infancy, others are a little bit more mature, but we're all moving together with a common interest in this. So, albeit we do look and we do compare, but ultimately we're all here today with a common interest and a common goal to work together to bring our own disciplines and our own economies with us on this journey. So I would take heart, regardless of where you are on that journey. And as Jan said, there's no copy paste on this. If there was, we wouldn't be here. This is going to take iterations. We're going to have hopefully more good days than bad days, but ultimately it's a case that we will progress as a partnership, but ultimately to help our own economies and our own disciplines as well. So I do take heart. I always try to see the positives in what we're doing. Of course, there will be some tougher days. We're all busy. We've all got a life to live, apparently, but we're here for a common and a mutual love for trying to progress this agenda. So I do take heart in that.
Thanks a million. I'm loving this positive outlook, and you're bringing so much good energy to this future 4 years, I'm sure. Natalia, if you just want to do
Yes,
the last final round.
I don't know. We have a lot of challenge, no? But I think the first, or I think the best is the capacity to involve all of the people, no? All of the profiles, all of the rules, all of the levels inside the administrations. Because I think if we not extend this speech all of the levels, it's impossible to find the solutions, because we are changing the methodology to work inside the administrations. And if it's not possible to arrive to the unit competence people who is working, no, in these procedures, and when you talk with them, we need to define, no, we can work together to define the data models, etc. But if this kind of people doesn't understand what is the goal, what is the end that we want to arrive, it's not possible to I think to progress and to be possible these changes. I think because in our case, yes, we are very voluntary in our office, but we need you. And it's for that I say, no, in my presentation, I said, I am your friend, no? We are here, no? And it's for that, because we need you. And I think this is we are changing this our role, no, inside in these economic activities. And it's for that all of that, we need to put little breaks to work in this kind of innovation, because with little automatizations that every day we do in our daily work, it's possible very speed, it's possible to do early. Always here we work it with IT team. We have all of them that here is a grateful, and for us to work with. It's a pleasure for us to work every day with them. But this is not a IT problem. This is a organizational problem, and we are here to solve it. And I think we are no we are we are prepared to do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing this phenomenal reflections. I feel like everyone has taken different bits and pieces, but ultimately, all together, there is this one common ground. I'd like to finish this roundtable by asking something on the positive note, which would be what would be the success factor, or one of the success factors for this project to make an impact in your regions? Does someone want to start, or should I sacrifice someone? Chris. You're my favorite person.
I love to be this sacrificial lamb. No worries. These kind of positive aspects that this project will definitely bring to the table is also what we have as a problem is that we have this kind of BIM solutions, but we don't have the BIM mandate, so it's optional to use it, and it's not very well used. So there are still people finding excuses why not to use it. But now when there are like different countries and there is a momentum going there, and I can just showcase that, hey, people in Hungary, in Poland, in Spain, in Ireland, in Bosnia, they are going towards this kind of BIM thing. They see the benefits there. Why are you not seeing the benefits here? Why are you still not starting these things? Why are you not still giving us this kind of valuable information? So that would be one thing, and the other thing would be that definitely, even though that we have already some existing solution live, I wouldn't say that we are very far ahead. So it's just that we have some MVP out there, but this is just one small step. So tomorrow might be that Barcelona is ahead of Estonia already. It's totally possible. And what I can take from here definitely is the valuable experience of everybody from the table, because at the end of the day, we have to have this kind of like harmonization around Europe. And by working together, we can go towards that, because if everybody's just looking into their own country, just running like a horse on the track, then we just miss the world around us.
Thank you so much. Do you want to? Yeah,
Yeah, if I may,
please.
for me, in Ireland, we have a mandate. And the reason that a mandate was introduced is, unfortunately, to force industry to comply. And that doesn't sit well with me. And what I would like to see post-project is that industry isn't forced into doing this, but want to do this. And that to me would show success. So if industry and our partners engage in what we are proposing, and they're constructive and want to be here and want to work with us rather than have to work with us, to me that would be success.
And adding to that, it would be like if somebody's not doing something, I would say like there are like two options. Either they are not understanding about this, or this thing is not useful. And by mandating it, then it would be like the thing that, okay, maybe it's not useful, but we're just pressuring them, and we even don't know how to make it useful. But if it is an optional and with an open feedback system, then there is this possibility. If they don't understand, we can educate. If it's not useful for them, we have to change to make it useful.
I think it's two very interesting perspectives, and I think maybe the sort of leverage point would be to have this influence from a mandate, some sort of like integrated this top-down perspective, but also making sure that the industry and the companies are eager to adopt it as well. I feel like that maybe could be a good ecosystem for everyone, public administration and companies to thrive. I'd like to welcome more responses to my question. What that would be a success factor?
People in Bosnia and Herzegovina are generally really skeptical, and we lack trust. Sometimes I don't even trust myself. So it is a great to have a lot of good examples in the country, in our country, but also from other countries that are quite similar. You know, it's sometimes it's easier to introduce some examples from Hungary or from Poland, since we're more systems we used to be similar in a sense that we were both communist countries and we shared a lot of administration things, and it's easier if people in Poland are doing it, so can we. You know, it's but also it's nice to have examples from other parts of Europe to see what is Estonia doing, what can be done, and what are you doing in Barcelona. So I think this will we will have a lot of good examples, and we will introduce change and willingness to change, to adapt, because things are changing. We must change also, otherwise you will all leave and we will stay where we are.
Thanks a million. Please.
So when we have established the project team of this BIM4GOV, and the stakeholder group, we made a list of notes for 5 specific goals. First of all, introducing BIM-based data management. Secondly, connecting the county government with the digital platforms. Third one, developing BIM competencies. Fourth, applying BIM models in public communication. Fourth is strengthening the cooperation between the public and the private sectors. But if you ask me, for me, always can find a bigger scope and a bigger picture. And the county which I come from, Vas, is one of the smallest but the smartest in Hungary. We are quite rich and well-developed place. But if I see the map of Europe and see the other regions, I can find any aspects and any field of development, a county, a region, a city, which is much more better than me, than our county. So our main goal is to involving this European cooperation. First of all, bring the best practices to home, and secondly, we would like to create the opportunity for the region to contribute the countries' digital and general development. So the BIM4GOV project is one of this. So we would like to achieve our goals to being one of the best or the or best developed regions of Europe. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very interesting take. You're a very organized person because you do have a list, so it's going to be easier for you to measure the impact, the real impact of the project. But we do have some people pending to answer this question. Is it who's first? Please make it.
So I can say that actually guys talks a lot of things that I had in mind as well, but I think I will sum up and we don't have mandate in Poland as well. And as Jan showed in his presentation, in Europe, many countries don't have mandate as well. So I think that if we start touching this subject, maybe we will just push this subject around the whole Europe. And we will not find a solution only for our region, but maybe the solution will be more familiar in the whole Europe. And finally, some common regulation will arrive in the European Union, which will be helpful for all of us.
Yes, I only to if I need to add something about that, I think yes, in more countries, BIM is not in the agenda. It's not in political agenda. It's not in administration, and I think in this case, yes, I think is interesting this project in that. I think I don't now we it's not possible to to evaluate no if this project complete our expectations or not, because now we start no and but I think now at the stage that we are, sometimes the economic activities not be um, evaluate positive the administration. They are evaluating our procedures are not good in this way. It's not possible to continue in this way. But if you do the survey in the part of the administrations, we have the same feeling because our daily day, no, is not our work. Sometimes you say, oh, every day I do the same, in the same way. This document is the same. Is in the same direction that I did yesterday for the other industry, etc. And I think sometimes this methodology, this project, it will be to balance. I think this feeling in the part of the economic activity, but I think it's more important to in the part of administration and to complete, if it's possible, or to approximate no this feeling uh, uh, with these permits and these digital permits, if it's possible to.
Yeah, Thank you so much. I'd like to sum this roundtable by saying two things. The first one is I realized I spent 45 minutes sitting here and I have not introduced myself. So 99% of you might be wondering who I am. My name is Paula Garces, and I'm the lead project coordinator at the Office of Business Management. And then the second one is that to conclude, more or less, I am no BIM expert, so I'm sure your conclusions are well more informed than mine. But it seems like even in our different contexts and our different regions, there are just some common ground that we've found altogether, and it's the necessity to keep evolving to put this sort of like leveraging point between a BIM mandate or progress in this BIM mandate, but also inspire our public administrations and our companies to build this new way of working and integrating this BIM information. Building information models within our roots and how we use our permits and our complex procedures altogether. I want to wrap up by saying thank you to everyone that has come here to the stage and also to our colleagues that are here sitting down and at home in their organization. I'm eager to see how this project evolves and how we bring it back home and how we engage with our stakeholders and therefore just apply it to our regions. I'd like to welcome any questions for anyone here at this stage, um, if there is any. I feel like if there is not any questions, we did quite a good job because we've explained everything very clear. But then I'd like to give the floor then to our closing speech. So thank you very much to everyone. We can step down. Yes.
Molt bona tarda. Tingueu els que porteu aquí tot el dia. Escolteu-me, deixa'm cloure breument aquesta jornada que he pogut tenir l'art del dia d'avui. No m'allargaré perquè he tingut una jornada a Madrid molt intensa i molt profitosa, amb la qual crec que ens hem de quedar amb aquesta part i no amb la part més institucional. Però escolta, el que estem fent aquí avui crec que és important destacar que és un pas important per a l'administració de la Generalitat de Catalunya. Crec que val la pena agrair a tota la gent que ho ha fet possible. Hem tingut aquí un panel d'experts internacionals i nacionals molt destacat, que em sembla que és una combinació bona. Un lideratge de Catalunya en aquest àmbit, també amb la col·laboració i acompanyament col·lectiva europea, amb el que sembla que és un projecte a destacar com a exemple del que va fer l'administració. Sabeu molt bé, aquí darrere tenim el cartell que us ho recorda, que tenim un pla lidera, no?, que focalitza què vol fer el govern en aquests 4 anys en l'àmbit econòmic, aquests 4 o 5 anys en l'àmbit econòmic, no? I un dels àmbits principals a destacar és la simplificació administrativa, com agilitzem l'administració de cara al ciutadà i de cara a l'empresa, al final els nostres usuaris, diguem, en el dia a dia. Sabem sempre, i sempre ho dic quan tinc l'ocasió, que és un repte immens. No és fàcil, no serà immediat, no serà ràpid, no? Però el que fem avui és posar un pas, una eina tecnològica que ens pot ajudar a fer un pas més en un sentit en aquesta direcció. No? Per tant, celebrar que tenim aquesta jornada, que no ha sigut fàcil organitzar-la, que ha sigut mobilitzar molta gent i, per tant, també agrair a la gent que ho ha fet possible de la Generalitat i també de l'àmbit europeu que està aquí avui present en aquest dia d'avui. Escolta, a vegades quan parlem de tecnologia com aquesta, és complex explicar a la ciutadania què estem fent, no? El BIM no és una cosa fàcil d'explicar moltes vegades, no? Què estem fent, com ho volem implementar, no? Però al final el que és important és que la ciutadania vegi la solució final. O sigui, amb ell no sé explicar què és el BIM. Els és igual segurament què és el BIM. El que volen és quan tinguin un resultat d'un producte final sigui més àgil, puguin perdre menys temps, que les empreses, en aquest cas que ens ocupen a nosaltres, tinguin un servei més àgil, una reducció de terminis i, per tant, els empresaris es puguin dedicar a portar valor afegit als seus empreses, que és el que volem que facin, i els ciutadans en el seu dia a dia tinguin un tràmit més fàcil. No? Per tant, volia avui estar una estona amb vosaltres, m'ha agradat fer la inauguració i poder estar una estona del panel, però no ha sigut possible finalment, però sí que volia compartir aquests 2 minuts per dir-vos que el que fem avui aquí no és menor. A vegades hem de dedicar un temps a la nostra vida, a la nostra feina, que tots anem molt ocupats en 1000 temes que ens ocupen el dia a dia, no? per pensar en temes com aquests, no? Que és una mirada al futur, una escletxa cap al futur i com implementem aquest tipus de tecnologies perquè tinguem com una administració més eficient i més orientada a resultats. Jo us volia només cloure per agrair a tothom que estigui aquí durant aquesta jornada del matí, que sé que ha sigut, com m'han dit, durant el llarg del matí anàvem fent reports molt intensa i profitosa. Agrair a la gent que ha vingut a fora també a participar a la jornada, que és important també tenir aquesta visió de conjunt a nivell europeu, i agrair també a la gent que feu possible que el lideratge sigui català. Que moltes vegades tenim aquest complex que ho fan millor a altres llocs, aquí estem liderant aquesta iniciativa i em sembla que és important destacar-ho també des del nostre govern. Així que moltes gràcies per la feina que heu fet i que continuï sent així.